In tonight's Talker, as we get ready to ring in the new year, we take a look back at a year that was one for the record books. Fox's Bill Hemmer takes a look at the past 12 months and the top stories that shaped the news in 2024.
2024 was another year of politics and war, marked by the ongoing conflicts in Israel and Ukraine, and one of the craziest presidential elections we have ever seen. Those stories and more dominating the headlines over the past 12 months.
From the beginning, it was a turbulent year for Boeing. In January, the door of an Alaska Air 737 blew out midair. Investigations later revealed a shocking lack of quality control at some Boeing facilities and contractors. The company lost billions in revenue and stock value and missed delivery on some of its planes. And if those headwinds were not enough, Boeing also dealt with a major labor strike. Thousands walked off the job for almost 2 months, demanding better pay and better working conditions. In October, the company was forced to tighten its belt, announcing plans to cut 17,000 jobs. It was one of the most dramatic accidents in American history. In the early morning hours of March 26, a container ship rammed into the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, collapsing the 3 main spans. At least 6 people were killed, and all shipping in Baltimore Harbor was halted for 11 weeks. The bridge is expected to be rebuilt by 2028 at a cost of $2 billion.
Yeah, the sun's like, hey guys, I'm the boss of the solar system.
From the seas to the skies, on April 8th, much of the country came to a standstill, breaking out special glasses for a total solar eclipse, visible across wide parts of the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. Astronomers say we won't see another one like this until the year 2045. For Donald Trump, it was a year to persevere, facing down charges in 4 separate court cases. His only conviction came in New York, where a jury found him guilty of falsifying business records to cover up an affair he denies with Stormy Daniels. But his status as the first former president to be convicted of a felony might not last long. The conviction could be vacated following the dismissal of his 2 federal cases after the Supreme Court ruled presidents enjoy almost total immunity for official actions taken in office. The summer kicked off with the Olympic opening ceremony like no other. Paris pulled out all the stops for the 2024 Summer Games, including an opening spectacle on the Seine River. But the river later became a liability after multiple swimming events had to be postponed or relocated due to high levels of bacteria found in the water. The war in the Mideast still raging and expanding over the past 12 months. Israel taking the fight directly to the Hamas leadership, killing its political leader Ismail Haniyeh in July, and military leader Yahya Sinwar a few months later. Then on their northern front, Israel took out Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of the Iranian-backed group Hezbollah, before sending troops into Lebanon. But in December, both sides came together for a tentative ceasefire that could lead to a long-term peace settlement. Iran and Israel also exchanging multiple rounds of direct airstrikes on each other. Most of the Iranian missiles were shot down, while the Israeli strikes are said to have crippled Iran's air defense system and its capability to produce weapons for its proxy groups. Another world conflict also expanding in 2024, that's the war in Ukraine. After months of bloody stalemates, in August, Ukraine shocked Russia and the world by invading Russian territory. It's the first time foreign troops have done that since World War II. The surprise offensive forced Vladimir Putin to pull significant forces from the front lines. Running short on troops, he cut a deal with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, who sent about 10,000 soldiers to fight alongside the Russian army. That move prompted President Biden to authorize the use of long-range American missiles against targets deep inside Russia. Moscow responding just days later with an advanced missile attack on Ukraine, reportedly using an ICBM for the first time since the start of the war. It was a big year in the modern space race, especially for SpaceX. Its massive new vehicle, the Starship, conducting its first successful test flights and landings over the summer. Then in September, tourists on board the Polaris Dawn completed the first ever commercial spacewalk. 2 civilians stepping out among the stars to help test a new spacesuit that could become standard for all astronauts. The 2024 Atlantic hurricane season left a trail of destruction, casualties, and massive massive economic losses. Early in September, Hurricane Francine made landfall in Louisiana, bringing extensive flooding to the Gulf Coast. Just 3 weeks later, Hurricane Helene slammed into the Florida Big Bend as a Category 4 storm. But hundreds of miles inland, North Carolina was especially hit hard. Helene caused more than $120 billion worth of damage and at least 234 deaths, becoming the deadliest hurricane to strike the U.S. mainland since Katrina in 2005. Then, 9 days later, Category 5 Hurricane Milton became the second most intense Atlantic hurricane ever to hit the U.S., causing major flooding and heavy damage throughout Florida and the state of Georgia. Food safety became a big issue this year after a number of recalls and outbreaks, including a wave of E. coli cases linked to McDonald's Quarter Pounders. Turns out it was the onions that were quickly removed from most McDonald's menus. But the number of recalls has grown significantly. There were more than 25 in November alone. After more than 4 years of relative calm, the Syrian civil war suddenly heated up again. An Islamist group quickly and without warning took control of the country's biggest city, Aleppo. Then they began a lightning offensive that overwhelmed the Syrian military. Even with Iran and Russia helping the Assad regime in the past, the militants reached the capital city of Damascus in only 10 days. Longtime Syrian President Bashar al-Assad fled the country, and the government collapsed just before the end of the year. But 2024's biggest story was the presidential election. Donald Trump quickly vanquished the Republican field to claim the GOP nomination for the third time in a row, setting up what looked like another Trump-Biden showdown. But everything changed in June when the candidates met for their first debate.
I've been able to do with the with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden.
Almost immediately, prominent Democrats started calling for the president to drop out of the race. Then a wild month of July, when this happened.
What happened?
An assassin shot at former President Trump during an outdoor rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. The bullet hit his right ear, the first candidate to be shot on the campaign trail since 1972. 8 days after that, Biden announced he was dropping out, becoming the first sitting president not to seek re-election in more than 50 years. He endorsed his vice president, Kamala Harris, and most Democrats rallied around her. From there, it was a sprint to the finish. Polls showed a race too close to call, and this was expected to be one of the tightest elections in American history. But in the end, Trump won a resounding victory, sweeping the battleground states and winning the popular vote for the first time in 3 tries. On January 20th, he will become just the second president in American history to serve 2 non-consecutive terms.
That was Bill Hemmer reporting. Now, the start of President Trump's second term is expected to dominate the headlines in the year ahead. And as he tries to enact his agenda with a Republican Congress, his inauguration will be stacked into a busy national news January, coupled with a state funeral for Jimmy Carter.